Good afternoon, Park Meadows. I am on the docket today for the Tuesday Devotional this week. Had the honor this afternoon of attending the funeral for Pearl Miller's dad, Peter. And as we were at the graveside, the minister was reading from John chapter 11. Some words that I love, and I thought I would share them with you. So it's the story of Lazarus. And how he's got fallen sick and he has died, and Jesus arrives late. And as the minister said, the sisters didn't do very well with that. They weren't very fond of Jesus being late. But they arrive, and so they come out to Jesus and they have this conversation with him. And in John 11, we read this. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. And then the minister pointed out to us that Jesus asked this critical question at the end of this moving statement by Jesus. He says, do you believe this? And it was a profound moment for us, I think, just to first of all, to contemplate Peter's life and to know that he believed this. To be asked that question, do I, in this moment, do I believe this? Do I believe that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, and that anyone who believes in him will live even though they die? And it got me thinking, because one of the things that I love to talk about, and I think I might have talked about it here before, is this idea that while there is this very much an important tenet of our faith that talks about the idea of the resurrection of the body, and so that there will be a resurrected life someday. We will be rejoined with our bodies, and we will have a heavenly body of some nature. There's also this idea, though, in the scriptures, and we sometimes miss out on it, that in the here and now, Jesus wants us to live resurrection life. So there's going to be the resurrected life someday, but even now, we're called to live a resurrection life. And I find that coming from Galatians chapter 2. So Paul is writing to the church in Galatia, and he says these words to them. So chapter 2, he says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. So this idea of that Christ, or the resurrected Christ, or the spirit of the resurrected Christ, lived in Paul and lives in us who believe. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. And I guess maybe I'm splitting hairs, but I think sometimes we get into this idea that there is life today and we have to get through life today, and then there will be this glorious resurrection and resurrected life, and everything will be great and wonderful. And we just have to kind of get through now. But Paul seems to be speaking about this idea that because Jesus has died and has been resurrected, and that his spirit lives within us who believe, that we can begin to live, at least in some kind of a foreshadow and some kind of a taste, kind of like getting a little, licking the batter off the spoon before the cookies get baked. It's delicious. It's maybe not exactly what's going to come, but it's a really good start. But that we get to live resurrection life today, that we can live not afraid of death, because in some measure we've already died and we've been buried with Christ, and we can live a resurrection life today. So that as we think of all the hard things, those things that feel like a death, the hard conversations with an employer, the revealing your inner thoughts or fears or worries to a spouse or to a parent or to a friend, those conversations where you feel like it's going to be the end of the world, recognizing that it doesn't need to be something that scares us and paralyzes us, because we no longer live. Christ lives in us, and so we get to live this resurrection life confident that there is life on the other side of death. In fact, the scriptures tell us that unless a grain of wheat dies and falls into the ground, it bears no fruit. But it's through death that this abundant life comes. And so as you think about those scriptures and you think about this question Jesus asked, do you believe this? That's an important one. Do you believe that Jesus is the resurrection and the life? It's a critical question for us because it not only orients us and speaks about our destiny, but it speaks about our today. It speaks about how we can live our life today, knowing that the spirit of the resurrected Jesus is in us, and we do not need to be afraid of the big and the scary, but that as we lay down our life day after day, abundant life becomes available because the Spirit of God himself dwells in us. So be encouraged, Park Meadows. Don't be afraid. Know that the Spirit of God lives in you if you believe. Let's hold on to that, but then let's also make sure that we share that with all that we come in contact with. God bless you. Have a great day.